the message that shattered everything. Welcome to Rose and Retribution. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Maya-chan stared at her phone screen, her hands trembling so violently that the champagne flute slipped from her fingers and shattered across the marble floor of the country club bathroom. The message was simple, devastating, impossible to misunderstand. Your fiancé is in the presidential suite. Room 2407. Thought you should know before you marry him tomorrow. A friend. Attached was a photo. Blurry, but clear enough. Clear enough to see Ethan's distinctive silver watch, the one she'd given him for their anniversary. Clear enough to see his hand intertwined with fingers that wore a ring she recognized. A sapphire that belonged to her best friend since childhood, Victoria. The rehearsal dinner was happening just downstairs. 200 guests, laughing and celebrating the wedding that was supposed to happen in less than 24 hours. Maya's parents had flown in from Seattle. Ethan's family had arrived from Boston. The flowers were arranged. The dress was hanging in her suite. Everything was perfect. Everything was a lie. The climb to truth. Maya didn't remember leaving the bathroom. She didn't remember taking the elevator to the 24th floor. Her bare feet silent on the plush carpet because she'd kicked off her heels somewhere between the lobby and the elevator. She only remembered the cold fury settling into her chest, replacing the initial shock with something harder, something that felt like ice crystallizing around her heart. Room 2407 sat at the end of a long hallway, isolated and private. Of course, Ethan would choose the most expensive suite in the hotel. He'd always had expensive tastes, which was ironic considering Maya was the one with money. Her family's tech company was worth billions. Ethan worked in her father's firm, a position he'd secured shortly after they started dating 3 years ago. 3 years. Had he been lying the entire time? Maya pressed her ear against the door. She could hear voices, low and intimate, punctuated by laughter that made her stomach turn. Victoria's laugh, the one that used to make Maya smile because it sounded like wind chimes. Now it sounded like breaking glass. She had a key card. Of course she did. Ethan had given her 1 week ago, claiming he'd booked this room for them to use after the rehearsal dinner, somewhere they could escape the chaos and be alone before their wedding day. She'd thought it was romantic. She'd been such a fool. The scene behind closed doors. The door opened silently. The suite was dim, lit only by candles that flickered across champagne-colored walls. Maya's eyes adjusted quickly, taking in the scene that would be burned into her memory forever. Victoria lay across the California king bed, wearing nothing but a silk robe that gaped open. Her auburn hair, which she'd worn in an elegant updo at the rehearsal dinner, now cascaded across the pillows. Ethan stood by the window, his shirt unbuttoned, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I can't believe we're actually going to pull this off," Victoria said, her voice throaty and satisfied. "By this time tomorrow, you'll be married to the richest woman in Seattle, and I'll be your favorite mistress." Ethan laughed, walking toward the bed. "Mistress? Victoria, darling, you're so much more than that. You're the woman I actually want. Maya is just the bank account with legs." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She waited for the pain, for the devastation, but instead, she felt something else entirely. Clarity. Cold, perfect clarity. "Actually," Victoria continued, accepting the wine glass, "I was thinking, once you're married and have access to all that Chin family money, how long before we could arrange a little accident? Make it look like she fell down the stairs or something. Then you inherit everything, and we can finally be together openly." The wine glass in Ethan's hand paused halfway to his lips. For a moment, Maya thought he would object, would show some shred of humanity. Instead, he grinned. "Slow down, sweetheart. We have to be smart about this. Give it a year, maybe 2. Let everyone see how devoted I am. Then, when tragedy strikes, no one will suspect a thing." The revelation. Maya stepped into the room, her movements deliberate and controlled. "How about we skip the waiting and go straight to the tragedy?" Victoria's shriek was almost comical. She grabbed the sheet, wrapping it around herself as if modesty mattered now. Ethan's face drained of color, the wine glass slipping from his fingers to stain the white carpet crimson. Maya, this isn't... Ethan stammered, his mind clearly scrambling for an explanation. An excuse, anything. Save it. Maya's voice was steady, almost conversational. I heard everything. The mistress comment, the bank account with legs, and my personal favorite, the murder plot. We were joking. Victoria's voice pitched higher, desperate. Maya, you know how we are. We were just being dramatic. You're overreacting. Maya pulled out her phone, held it up so they could see the recording app that had been running since she entered the suite. Was I overreacting when I recorded your entire conversation? Because I'm pretty sure conspiracy to commit murder isn't a joke. The color returned to Ethan's face, but now it was red, angry. He took a step toward her. You can't prove anything. Delete that right now. Or what? Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut. You'll kill me sooner than planned? The woman behind the curtain. I knew you were pathetic, Ethan. But I didn't realize you were also stupid. A new voice entered the conversation, rich and amused. Maya's mother, Catherine Chun, stepped out from the bedroom's second entrance, the one that connected to the adjoining suite. She was followed by Maya's father, David, and 3 men in dark suits that Maya recognized as the family's lawyers. Victoria made a sound like a wounded animal. Ethan simply froze, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and finally, dawning horror. Mom! Maya's composure cracked slightly. How did you? The anonymous message came from me, sweetheart. Catherine walked to her daughter, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Though I suppose it wasn't anonymous anymore. I've had investigators watching your fiancé for 6 months. I had my suspicions, but I needed proof before I broke your heart. David Chun stepped forward, his expression carved from granite. Did you really think the Chun family became successful by being naive? We vet everyone who gets close to our daughter. Everyone. One of the story should be consist of 60,000 characters or 55,000 characters, never less than that. OK 00:19 Part 1. The shocking betrayal. The message that shattered everything. Welcome to Rose and Retribution. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Maya Chun stared at her phone screen, her hands trembling so violently that the champagne flute slipped from her fingers and shattered across the marble floor of the country club bathroom. The message was simple, devastating, impossible to misunderstand. Your fiancé is in the presidential suite. Room 2407. Thought you should know before you marry him tomorrow. A friend. Attached was a photo. Blurry, but clear enough. Clear enough to see Ethan's distinctive silver watch, the one she'd given him for their anniversary. Clear enough to see his hand intertwined with fingers that wore a ring she recognized. A sapphire that belonged to her best friend since childhood, Victoria. The rehearsal dinner was happening just downstairs. 200 guests, laughing and celebrating the wedding that was supposed to happen in less than 24 hours. Maya's parents had flown in from Seattle. Ethan's family had arrived from Boston. The flowers were arranged. The dress was hanging in her suite, a custom Vera Wang that had taken 8 months to create. Everything was perfect. Everything was a lie. Maya looked at herself in the mirror. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, diamond earrings glittering at her ears. A gift from Ethan last Christmas. Her dress was a deep emerald silk that hugged her curves, chosen specifically because Ethan said it was his favorite color on her. Even her perfume, the expensive French one that made her nose itch but that Ethan loved, was chosen for him. Who was she anymore? When had she stopped making choices for herself and started living entirely for a man who was, at this very moment, betraying her with her best friend? The climb to truth. Maya didn't remember leaving the bathroom. She didn't remember taking the elevator to the 24th floor, her bare feet silent on the plush carpet because she'd kicked off her Louboutins somewhere between the lobby and the elevator. She only remembered the cold fury settling into her chest, replacing the initial shock with something harder, something that felt like ice crystallizing around her heart. Room 2407 sat at the end of a long hallway, isolated and private. Of course Ethan would choose the most expensive suite in the hotel. He'd always had expensive tastes, which was ironic considering Maya was the one with money. Her family's tech company, Chun Innovations, was worth $3 billion. Ethan worked in her father's firm as a junior marketing executive, a position he'd secured shortly after they started dating 3 years ago. 3 years. Had he been lying the entire time? The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before her, each step bringing her closer to a truth she both needed and dreaded. Her mind raced through memories, searching for signs she'd missed. The business trips Ethan took that seemed excessive for his position. The times Victoria had canceled their lunch dates at the last minute, claiming work emergencies. The way they'd both discouraged her from pursuing her dream of opening an art gallery, insisting she should focus on being a good wife instead. How many people had known? How many had watched her plan this wedding, smiled at her happiness, all while knowing her fiancé and best friend were making a fool of her behind her back? Maya pressed her ear against the door of room 2407. She could hear voices, low and intimate, punctuated by laughter that made her stomach turn. Victoria's laugh, the one that used to make Maya smile because it sounded like wind chimes. Now it sounded like breaking glass. She had a key card. Of course she did. Ethan had given her 1 week ago, claiming he'd booked this room for them to use after the rehearsal dinner, somewhere they could escape the chaos and be alone before their wedding day. She'd thought it was romantic, had even felt a flutter of excitement at his thoughtfulness. She'd been such a fool. But not anymore. Maya pulled out her phone, opened the voice recording app, and pressed record. She slipped the phone into the small clutch purse she'd been carrying, making sure the microphone was exposed. Then she took a deep breath, steadied her shaking hands, and slid the key card into the lock. The scene behind closed doors. The door opened silently. The suite was dim, lit only by candles that flickered across champagne-colored walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mock her. Maya's eyes adjusted quickly, taking in the scene that would be burned into her memory forever. Victoria lay across the California king bed, wearing nothing but a silk robe that gaped open, revealing far more than Maya wanted to see. Her auburn hair, which she'd worn in an elegant updo at the rehearsal dinner just an hour ago, now cascaded across the pillows in artful disarray. Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, his shirt unbuttoned to reveal the chest Maya had kissed goodbye that morning, holding 2 glasses of wine. The room smelled of expensive perfume, wine, and betrayal. "I can't believe we're actually going to pull this off," Victoria said, her voice throaty and satisfied in a way that made Maya's skin crawl. "By this time tomorrow, you'll be married to the richest woman in Seattle, and I'll be your favorite mistress. It's almost too perfect." Ethan laughed, a sound Maya had once found charming but now recognized as calculating. He walked toward the bed with the confidence of a man who believed he'd won. "Mistress? Victoria, darling, you're so much more than that. You're the woman I actually want. Maya is just the bank account with legs. A very generous bank account that's about to become mine." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She waited for the pain, for the devastation, but instead, she felt something else entirely. Clarity. Cold, perfect clarity. This wasn't love lost. This was a bullet dodged. "She's so trusting, isn't she?" Victoria continued, sitting up and taking the wine glass Ethan offered. "Sometimes I almost feel bad, like when she asked me to be her maid of honor, and she had tears in her eyes talking about how much our friendship meant to her. I had to pretend I wasn't meeting you in a hotel room twice a week. How long have you two been doing this?" Maya whispered to herself, but she stayed hidden, letting them continue to destroy themselves with their own words. Ethan settled onto the bed beside Victoria, his hands sliding possessively over her thigh. "The best part is her father already put me on the board of directors. Once we're married, I'll have legitimate access to company decisions. Give it 5 years, and I'll be running Chun Innovations while Maya plays housewife." "Actually," Victoria said, and something in her tone made Maya's blood run cold, "I was thinking, once you're married and have full access to all that Chin family money, how long before we could arrange a little accident?" Make it look like she fell down the stairs or had a tragic car crash. Then you inherit everything, and we can finally be together openly. No more sneaking around. No more pretending. The wine glass in Ethan's hand paused halfway to his lips. For a moment, for one brief second, Maya thought he would object, would show some shred of humanity or conscience. Instead, he grinned. A cold, calculated expression that transformed his handsome face into something monstrous. Slow down, sweetheart. We have to be smart about this. If something happens too soon, people will be suspicious. Give it a year, maybe two. Let everyone see how devoted I am, how much I love my wife. I'll play the perfect husband. Then, when tragedy strikes, maybe break failure on that mountain road she loves to drive, or perhaps a horrible home invasion, no one will suspect a thing. I'll be the grieving widower, and you'll be the best friend comforting me through my loss. Victoria clinked her glass against his. To the perfect crime. To $3 billion, Ethan corrected. And the freedom to spend it however we want. The revelation. Maya stepped fully into the room, letting the door close behind her with a soft click. Her movements were deliberate and controlled, each step measured. She'd never felt more calm, more focused in her entire life. How about we skip the waiting and go straight to the tragedy? Victoria's shriek was almost comical, high-pitched and panicked. She grabbed the sheet, wrapping it around herself as if modesty mattered now, as if Maya hadn't already seen everything she needed to see. Ethan's face drained of color so quickly Maya thought he might faint. The wine glass slipped from his fingers to stain the white carpet crimson, spreading like blood. Maya, this isn't... Ethan stammered, his mind clearly scrambling for an explanation. An excuse, anything that might salvage this situation. He stood up, fumbling with his shirt buttons. Baby, listen to me. This is not what it looks like. Save it. Maya's voice was steady, almost conversational, as if they were discussing dinner plans rather than murder and betrayal. I heard everything. The mistress comment, the bank account with legs, the 5-year plan, and my personal favorite, the murder plot. Brake failure on the mountain road was a nice touch, by the way. Very creative. We were joking. Victoria's voice pitched higher, desperate and shrill. She climbed off the bed, clutching the sheet around her body. Maya, you know how we are. We were just being dramatic, playing out a scenario. You're completely overreacting, right, Ethan? Tell her we were joking. Maya pulled out her phone from her purse, held it up so they could both clearly see the recording app that had been running since she entered the suite. The red recording light blinked steadily. Was I overreacting when I recorded your entire conversation? Because I'm pretty sure conspiracy to commit murder isn't a joke. I'm also pretty sure it's a felony. The color returned to Ethan's face, but now it was red, angry, dangerous. His expression shifted from panic to rage in seconds. He took a step toward her, his hands clenching into fists. You can't prove anything. Delete that recording right now, Maya. I'm not kidding. Delete it. Or what? Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut diamonds. She stood her ground, refusing to show fear even though her heart was pounding. You'll kill me sooner than planned? Maybe push me out this 24th floor window and claim I was distraught about something? Would Victoria back you up on that story too? Don't be dramatic, Ethan snarled, taking another step closer. Just give me the phone. We can talk about this rationally. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years. The woman behind the curtain. I knew you were pathetic, Ethan. But I didn't realize you were also stupid. A new voice entered the conversation. Rich and amused, cultured and powerful. Maya's mother, Catherine Chun, stepped out from the bedroom's second entrance, the one that connected to the adjoining suite. She was followed by Maya's father, David, and 3 men in dark suits that Maya recognized as the family's lawyers. Behind them were 2 more people, a woman with a camera and a man with professional recording equipment. Victoria made a sound like a wounded animal, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Ethan simply froze, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and finally, dawning horror as he realized he'd been trapped. "Mom!" Maya's composure cracked slightly, her voice wavering with surprise and something that felt dangerously close to relief. When did you? The anonymous message came from me, sweetheart. Catherine walked to her daughter with the grace of a woman who'd spent decades commanding boardrooms and charity galas. She wrapped an arm around Maya's shoulders, and Maya suddenly felt like she could breathe again. "Though I suppose it wasn't anonymous anymore. I've had investigators watching your fiancé for 6 months. I had my suspicions, but I needed proof before I broke your heart." David Chun stepped forward, his expression carved from granite, every inch the billionaire CEO who'd built an empire from nothing. His voice was cold enough to frost the windows. "Did you really think the Chun family became successful by being naive? We vet everyone who gets close to our daughter. Everyone. And you, Ethan Morrison, failed that vetting spectacularly." One of the lawyers, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, opened a leather portfolio. "Mr. Morrison, we have documented evidence of 37 separate occasions over the past 18 months where you and Ms. Victoria Hastings engaged in extramarital relations. We have financial records showing you've been embezzling from Chun Innovations, small amounts carefully hidden but traceable. We have emails between you and Ms. Hastings discussing your plans for Maya's accident. And now, thanks to this evening's recording, we have direct evidence of conspiracy to commit murder." Victoria had gone from red to white to a sickly green color. She collapsed onto the bed, the sheet falling away forgotten. "I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything else without a lawyer." "Smart," Catherine said coldly. "You'll need a good one. Several, probably." Ethan's expression had transformed from rage to calculation. Maya could see his mind working, searching for an angle, a way out. He'd always been good at talking his way out of trouble, at convincing people to give him chances he didn't deserve. Catherine, let's all calm down," Ethan said, his voice taking on that smooth, charming quality that had fooled Maya for so long. "Yes, I made mistakes. I had an affair. I'm not proud of it, but it happens in relationships. As for the rest, you can't seriously believe I would hurt Maya. Those were just stupid, drunk fantasies. Nobody actually meant anything we said tonight." "Drunk?" David's eyebrow rose. "The toxicology report from the wine glasses will prove interesting then. I'm curious what your blood alcohol level is right now." "This is entrapment." Ethan's voice rose again, desperate. "You tricked us, manipulated this entire situation." "We gave you an opportunity," Catherine corrected, her voice like ice. "You chose to take it. You chose to plot my daughter's murder for money. That choice was entirely yours." Maya watched Ethan's face, searching for any sign of remorse, any indication that the man she'd loved had ever actually existed. There was nothing, just a con artist whose mask had finally fallen away. "I loved you," Maya said quietly, and everyone in the room fell silent. "I actually loved you. I would have given you anything. If you'd just been honest, if you told me you needed help, wanted support for your career, I would have done it freely. You didn't have to steal. You didn't have to lie. Love." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You loved the idea of love. You loved planning a perfect wedding and being a perfect bride. You never actually saw me, Maya. You saw a handsome face to put in your Christmas card photos." "Perhaps," Maya acknowledged, and something shifted in her expression. The hurt faded, replaced by something harder, something forged in fire. "But you know what? I'd rather love an idea than be the person who plots murder for money. At least I have the capacity to love at all." The consequences unfold. The photographer stepped forward, her camera clicking rapidly. "Just for the record, we've been documenting everything since you entered this suite, Ms. Chun. Video and audio. This will hold up in any court." "It won't need to go to court," one of the male lawyers said, pulling out a thick stack of papers. "Mr. Morrison, Ms. Hastings, you have 2 options. Option 1, we go to the police right now with everything we have. You're both arrested for conspiracy to commit murder. Ethan is charged with embezzlement, and this becomes a very public, very ugly criminal trial. Your faces will be on every news channel in the country. Your families will be dragged through the mud. You'll both likely spend the next 10 to 15 years in prison. What's option 2? Victoria asked, her voice small and broken. The lawyer smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Option 2. You sign these confession documents, admitting to everything. You agree to pay full restitution for the embezzled funds, with interest. Victoria, you resign from your position at Hastings Media immediately and agree to never work in journalism or public relations again. Ethan, you resign from Chan Innovations, forfeit any stock options or benefits, and agree to never contact anyone in the Chun family again. You both leave Seattle within 72 hours and never return. You also sign ironclad non-disclosure agreements. If you ever speak about this family, this situation, or attempt to sell your story, the criminal charges proceed immediately. That's blackmail, Ethan said, but his voice had lost its strength. No, David corrected. That's mercy, more than you deserve. The choice is yours, but you have 60 seconds to make it. Maya watched them. These two people who'd been planning her death just minutes ago, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. This was justice. This was retribution. Victoria broke first. She crawled across the bed to where the papers lay, grabbed a pen with shaking hands and signed. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs as she scrawled her name across document after document. Ethan held out longer, his jaw clenched, his pride warring with his survival instinct. But when the lawyer pulled out his phone and began dialing, "Hello? Seattle Police Department," Ethan lunged for the pen. "Fine. Fine. I'll sign. Just hang up the phone." The scratching of pen on paper filled the room for the next 5 minutes. Maya watched Ethan's hand shake as he signed away his future, his plans, everything he'd worked toward for 3 years. When he finished, he looked up at her, and for the first time, she saw real emotion in his eyes. Not remorse. Hatred. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "You think you've won, but you'll spend the rest of your life alone, Maya. You'll never trust anyone again. I've poisoned you against love itself. That's my victory." Maya smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd worn all evening. "No, Ethan. You've freed me. You've shown me exactly what I don't want. And that's the most valuable lesson anyone's ever taught me." She turned to her mother. "Can we go now? I'm done here." "Of course, darling." Catherine guided her daughter toward the door, but paused at the threshold. "Mr. Morrison, Ms. Hastings, you have 72 hours. I'd suggest you start packing. And if I were you, I'd move somewhere very far away. The Chun family has a long memory and a longer reach." As they left the suite, Maya heard Victoria burst into loud, messy sobs. Ethan's voice followed them down the hallway, alternating between cursing and pleading, but Maya didn't look back. In the elevator, Maya finally let herself feel. The tears came hot and fast, streaming down her carefully made-up face. Her mother held her, saying nothing, just providing solid, warm presence. "I really loved him, Mom," Maya whispered. "How could I be so wrong about someone? Because you loved honestly and he loved selfishly. That's not your failure, sweetheart. That's his." The elevator doors opened to the parking garage instead of the lobby, and Maya understood. Her mother had planned everything, down to avoiding the rehearsal dinner guests who would ask questions about her tear-stained face. "What happens now?" Maya asked as they walked to the waiting car. Catherine Chun smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who'd built empires and destroyed enemies. Now you take back your life. You stop living for other people's expectations and start living for yourself. And if you want revenge beyond what we did tonight, well, the Chun family didn't become powerful by forgiving easily." Maya looked back at the hotel, at the windows glowing with warm light, at the place where her old life had died and something new had been born. She thought about Ethan's words, about never trusting again, about being poisoned against love. But as her father joined them in the car, as her mother squeezed her hand, as the lawyers efficiently packed up their evidence, Maya realized something important. She hadn't lost her capacity for love. She just redirected it to people who actually deserved it. "Mom," Maya said as the car pulled away from the hotel. "Yes, sweetheart. Tomorrow I want to cancel the wedding, obviously. But the venue is paid for, the food is ordered. All those guests are in town." Maya's eyes glinted with something dangerous and new. What if we turned it into something else? A celebration of freedom. A statement. Let's throw the party of the century and show everyone that Maya-chan doesn't need a man to be worth celebrating. Catherine's smile widened. "That's my girl." As Seattle's city lights blurred past the window, Maya-chan made a promise to herself. She would recover. She would rebuild. And she would make sure that Ethan Morrison and Victoria Hastings regretted the day they ever thought they could destroy her. The war had just begun, and Maya intended to win. But the story is far from over. Maya's transformation has only begun, and revenge comes in many forms. What happened at the wedding that wasn't? How did Maya rebuild her life? And did Ethan and Victoria truly disappear? Or were they plotting their own comeback? Find out in Part 2, Heartbreak and Revenge. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. 200:22 Part 2. Heartbreak and Revenge. The wedding that became a war declaration. The Grand Cascadia Hotel ballroom had never looked more spectacular. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across white silk drapes. Thousands of roses, cream, blush, and deep crimson, cascaded from ceiling installations. A string quartet played softly near the marble fountain that served as the room's centerpiece. 200 guests sat in gilded chairs, whispering among themselves, confused but curious. This was supposed to be Maya Chen's wedding day. Instead, it became her declaration of independence. Maya stood in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection. The Vera Wang gown still fit perfectly, hugging her curves before flowing into a dramatic train. But she'd made changes. The pure white had been dyed a deep, powerful red, the color of passion, of anger, of rebirth. Her mother's seamstress had worked through the night to add black lace details that transformed the innocent bridal gown into something fierce, something that made a statement. "You look like a warrior queen," Catherine said from behind her, fastening a necklace around Maya's throat. Not the delicate diamond piece Ethan had chosen, but Catherine's own ruby choker, bold, expensive, and impossible to ignore. "I feel like I'm about to walk into battle," Maya admitted, her hands trembling slightly as she touched the red fabric. "You are. But this time you're armed with the truth, and they're exposed and defenseless." Catherine met her daughter's eyes in the mirror. "Are you absolutely sure about this? We can still cancel, send everyone home, handle this privately." Maya thought about the question carefully. Last night, after leaving the hotel, she'd barely slept. She'd spent hours pacing her childhood bedroom, the one her parents kept exactly as she'd left it when she moved in with Ethan 2 years ago. She'd looked at photos of herself from high school, from college, from before Ethan. She tried to remember who that girl was, what she'd wanted before she'd started shaping her life around someone else's desires. That girl had wanted to open an art gallery. She'd dreamed of traveling to every major museum in the world. She'd planned to get her master's degree in art history. Instead, she'd spent 3 years planning dinner parties, attending corporate events as Ethan's arm candy, and slowly erasing herself to make room for his ambitions. "I'm sure," Maya said, her voice growing stronger. "Ethan said I'd never trust again, that he'd poisoned me against love. He was wrong. I'm not poisoned.
I'm purified."
And I want everyone to know exactly what he and Victoria are." Catherine smiled with fierce pride. "Then let's give them a show they'll never forget." The ceremony of truth. The ballroom doors opened at exactly 2 o'clock, right on schedule. But instead of traditional wedding music, a different song filled the air, "Survivor" by Destiny's Child, turned down to an elegant instrumental version that still carried unmistakable attitude. Maya walked down the aisle alone, her head held high. No father giving her away, no pretense of being transferred from one man's protection to another's. She walked under her own power, and every eye in the room tracked her movement. The whispers started immediately. Guests noticed the red dress, the absence of a groom, the subtle changes to the decorations. Where traditional wedding flowers had been planned, now dark roses dominated. Where engagement photos should have been displayed, large screens showed a single image, a photograph of Maya, alone, with the words, "Celebrating Independence," written in elegant script. Maya reached the altar, or what should have been an altar. Instead, there was a simple podium, a microphone, and her parents standing on either side like sentinels. She took the microphone with steady hands and looked out at the crowd. She recognized everyone. Ethan's parents, looking confused and concerned. Victoria's family, who hadn't yet been told what their daughter had done. Colleagues from Chun Innovations. Society friends who'd attended a dozen similar events. Everyone who'd been invited to celebrate her marriage. "Thank you all for coming," Maya began, her voice clear and strong. "I know you're confused. You were invited to a wedding, and there's clearly no groom. Let me explain why." She paused, letting the tension build. Ethan's mother half rose from her seat, but David Chun gestured for her to remain seated. "Last night, I received an anonymous message that led me to discover my fiancé in a hotel room with my maid of honor. That would be painful enough, but what I overheard was far worse than a simple affair." Maya's voice didn't waver. "I heard them planning my murder." The ballroom erupted in gasps and shocked exclamations. Ethan's mother did stand this time, her face pale. "That's impossible. My son would never." "Your son planned to kill me for my inheritance," Maya said, and the steel in her voice silenced the room again. "He and Victoria discussed waiting 1 to 2 years, then arranging an accident. Brake failure was mentioned. A home invasion. They wanted it to look natural, untraceable. And they were stupid enough to discuss it out loud, not knowing I was recording every word." On the screens around the room, video began to play. Maya had spent the early morning hours with her mother's lawyers, editing the footage down to the most damning moments. The audio was crystal clear. Ethan's voice filled the ballroom. "Maya is just the bank account with legs." Victoria's laugh echoed. "How long before we could arrange a little accident?" Ethan again. "Give it a year, maybe 2. Then when tragedy strikes, no one will suspect a thing." Maya watched the crowd as they absorbed the evidence. She saw horror, disbelief, and then anger. These weren't strangers. These were people who'd known her since childhood, who'd watched her fall in love with Ethan, who'd been genuinely happy for her. And now they understood how thoroughly she'd been betrayed. "I'm showing you this," Maya continued as the video ended. "Not for sympathy, but for truth, because for 3 years I lived a lie. I thought I was building a partnership, but I was really just funding someone else's lifestyle while he plotted my death. And I'm done with lies." She set down the microphone and picked up a glass of champagne from the table beside her. "So today, instead of getting married, I'm celebrating my freedom. I'm celebrating the fact that I discovered the truth before it was too late. And I'm making a promise to myself and to all of you. I will never again make myself smaller to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be." Catherine stepped forward with a knowing smile. "The reception will proceed as planned. The food, the drinks, the dancing, all of it. Consider this a celebration of survival. Anyone who wishes to leave is welcome to do so. But for those who stay, let's party like the strong, independent woman Maya Chun has always been meant to be finally showed up." The aftermath begins. Not everyone stayed. Ethan's parents left immediately, his mother in tears, his father making vague threats about lawsuits that everyone knew would go nowhere. Victoria's family departed shortly after, their faces masks of humiliation and fury. A handful of others, mostly business associates who'd been closer to Ethan than to Maya, slipped out during the transition to the reception. But most people stayed. And as the evening progressed, Maya realized something unexpected. She was having fun. Real, genuine fun for the first time in years. Her college roommate, Jessica, whom Ethan had always found reasons to exclude from their social circle, danced with her to songs they'd loved in their dorm room. Her cousin Marcus, who tried to warn her about Ethan a year ago and been shut out for his trouble, returned to the family fold with a fierce hug and an apology that Maya insisted was unnecessary. "You tried to tell me?" Maya said, clutching her cousin's hands. "I should have listened." "Why didn't I listen?" "Because you were in love," Marcus said gently. "Real love makes you blind sometimes. Fake love makes you blind all the time. Now you know the difference." As midnight approached, Maya found herself on the hotel terrace, looking out over Seattle's glittering skyline. The party continued inside, but she needed a moment of quiet, a moment to process everything that had changed in just 24 hours. Quite the performance today. The voice was male, unfamiliar, with a hint of an accent she couldn't quite place. Maya turned to find a man she didn't recognize leaning against the terrace railing. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes that seemed to analyze everything they saw. He wore an expensive suit, but wore it like he was comfortable in it, like he belonged in those clothes rather than trying to impress anyone. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Maya asked, immediately on guard. After last night, she wasn't sure she'd ever trust a stranger again. "We've never met."
I'm Dante Rossi.
He extended a hand, which Maya shook cautiously. "I'm a friend of your father's. Business associate, actually. I own Rossi Security International." The name clicked. Rossi Security was one of the largest private security and investigation firms in the world. If her father knew the owner personally, this wasn't a casual acquaintance. "You're the one who investigated Ethan," Maya realized. Dante nodded, his expression serious. "Your mother hired us 6 months ago. She had good instincts. Men like Ethan Morrison leave trails, and my team is very good at following them." "Thank you," Maya said simply. "Your work saved my life. Literally. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because your mother was right to be concerned, and because I don't like watching good people get exploited by parasites." Dante's jaw tightened slightly. "But I need to tell you something. The investigation isn't over." Maya's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "We have everything. The recordings, the financial evidence, the confessions. You have everything on Ethan and Victoria, yes. But there's more to this story." Dante pulled out his phone, showed her a photograph. "Do you recognize this man?" The photo showed a middle-aged man with graying hair and cold eyes, standing outside what looked like a warehouse. Maya had never seen him before.
No.
"Who is he?" "His name is Richard Blackwood. He's a facilitator, the kind of person criminals hire when they need something done but want to keep their hands clean. Ethan met with him 4 times over the past 3 months. We have surveillance footage of these meetings." Maya's hands began to shake. "You're saying Ethan was actually serious? He was planning to hire someone to kill me?" "We believe so. These meetings happened before Ethan knew he was being watched. He was putting pieces in place, being careful." Dante's voice was gentle but firm. "The good news is, now that he's been exposed and forced to leave Seattle, those plans are dead. Blackwood won't work with a client who's been compromised." But what?" "But Blackwood is still out there, and he has a reputation for holding grudges against people who interfere with his business. Your family's intervention cost him a potentially lucrative contract. Men like him don't forget that easily." Maya sank onto a nearby bench, her legs suddenly weak. "So even though Ethan is gone, I'm still in danger?" "Potentially. That's why I wanted to talk to you tonight." Dante sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "My company provides protection services. Your father has already hired us to provide security for you, at least for the next few months until we're certain Blackwood isn't a threat." "Bodyguards? You want to assign me bodyguards?" "I want to keep you alive," Dante corrected. "And I want you to be able to live your life without constantly looking over your shoulder. My team is discreet. You won't even know they're there most of the time." Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle herself, but the events of the past day had taught her humility. She thought she could read people, thought she understood her own life, and she'd been catastrophically wrong. "Okay," she agreed quietly. "Whatever you think is necessary." Dante pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back, and handed it to her. "This is my personal cell number. If you need anything day or night, you call me directly. Don't hesitate, don't second-guess yourself. If something feels wrong, it probably is." Maya looked at the card, then at Dante. "Why are you doing this yourself? Doesn't the owner of an international security company have more important things to do?" For the first time, Dante smiled, and it transformed his serious face into something warmer. "Let's just say I have personal reasons for hating men who manipulate women for money. And your father called in a favor. I owe him. So for the foreseeable future, keeping you safe is my top priority." Before Maya could respond, the terrace doors opened and Catherine appeared. "There you are, sweetheart. People are asking for you. They want to make toasts, share stories." She noticed Dante and smiled knowingly. "I see you've met Mr. Rossi. We were just discussing security arrangements," Dante said, standing smoothly. "Mrs. Chun, I'll have my detailed proposal on your desk Monday morning." "Thank you, Dante. We appreciate everything you're doing." As Dante left the terrace, Catherine sat beside her daughter. "He's a good man, trustworthy. Nothing like Ethan." "Mom, please don't." Maya shook her head. "I know you're trying to help, but I can't even think about men right now. About trust. About any of it." "I know. And I'm not suggesting you should." Catherine took Maya's hand. "But I am suggesting you remember that not every man is a liar. Some of them are genuinely decent. You'll learn to tell the difference. It just takes time." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the party drifting through the open doors behind them. "I want to open the gallery," Maya said suddenly. "The art gallery I always dreamed about. Ethan convinced me it was impractical, that I should focus on supporting his career instead. But I want to do it. I want to build something that's mine." Catherine's smile was brilliant. "Then let's make it happen. Monday morning we'll start looking at properties. The Chun Family Foundation will provide startup funding. And sweetheart, this time you make all the decisions. No compromises, no backing down. This is your dream, and it's going to be spectacular." The first move. 3 days later, Maya stood in an empty warehouse space in Seattle's Pioneer Square district. The building was historic, with exposed brick walls, soaring ceilings, and enormous windows that flooded the space with natural light. It was perfect. "The owner is motivated to sell," the real estate agent explained, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. "The building has been empty for 2 years. It needs work. New electrical, updated plumbing, restoration on some of the original features, but the bones are incredible." Maya walked through the space, already visualizing where exhibitions could hang, where she'd put the reception desk, how she'd divide the main gallery from smaller, intimate viewing rooms. This was it. This was where she'd build her future. "I'll take it," she said. The agent blinked in surprise. "Don't you want to see the other properties I have lined up? Get competitive bids? Have an inspector? I'll hire the best inspectors in the city. I'll get all the necessary reports. But I know what I want, and this is it." Maya turned to face the agent with a confidence she was only beginning to feel but was determined to project. "Draw up the papers. I want to close within 30 days. As the agent made excited phone calls to her office, Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your new gallery space. I hope it brings you the fresh start you deserve."
Dear.
Maya looked around the empty warehouse, suddenly aware she was being watched. She spotted him after a moment. Dante Rossi, standing in the shadows near the entrance, barely visible but definitely there. He raised a hand in acknowledgement, then disappeared. Her bodyguard, right? She was going to have to get used to that. But as Maya stood in her new gallery space, imagining the life she was about to build, she didn't feel afraid. She felt determined. Ethan had tried to destroy her, to reduce her to nothing more than a bank account. Instead, he'd freed her to become something more than she'd ever imagined. The threat emerges. 2 weeks later, construction had begun on the gallery. Maya spent her days meeting with contractors, designers, and potential artists. She spent her evenings researching, planning exhibitions, building a website. For the first time in years, she felt purpose, passion, excitement about her own life. She'd almost convinced herself that the danger had passed, that Dante's warnings about Richard Blackwood were just precautions. Almost. The first sign came on a Tuesday evening. Maya was working late at the gallery space, reviewing paint samples by the light of construction lamps, when her phone rang. Dante's name flashed on the screen. "Don't react to what I'm about to tell you," Dante said without preamble. "Act natural, keep looking at those paint samples, but listen carefully. You're being watched." Maya's heart hammered, but she forced herself to keep her posture relaxed, her expression neutral. "Where?" "Building across the street, third-floor window on the right. Camera with a telephoto lens. He's been there for 40 minutes, photographing you." "Is it?" "We don't know yet. Could be a private investigator hired by Ethan or Victoria to find leverage. Could be a reporter looking for a story. Could be Blackwood's surveillance. My team is moving to intercept, but I need you to leave the building now. Walk normally to the south exit. Marcus is waiting with a car." Maya gathered her things with deliberate slowness, every instinct screaming at her to run. "I know, but I need to try. For my own peace of mind, I need to know if there's any chance of ending this without more war." Maya's voice strengthened. "And if there isn't, if she chooses to keep coming after me, then I want her to know exactly what's coming. I want her to understand that I'm not the naive girl she betrayed anymore. I'm someone who fights back." Marcus caught her eye in the rearview mirror, and Maya saw pride there. "That's my cousin. When do you want to set up this meeting?" "As soon as possible. Tomorrow if we can arrange it." "I'll make it happen," Dante said. "But Maya, I'm coming with you. You don't meet her alone." "Fine. But Dante, when we get there, you stay in the background. This conversation is between Victoria and me. I need to handle it myself." "Understood. But if she makes any threat, any move that puts you in danger, then you step in. I trust you." The words surprised Maya as she said them, but she realized they were true. After years of misplaced trust, she was finally learning what real trust looked like. It wasn't blind faith in someone's goodness. It was confidence in someone's competence and character, earned through consistent action. As the SUV carried her through Seattle's streets toward her parents' home, Maya felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. She'd been betrayed, threatened, and targeted. But she'd also survived, rebuilt, and grown stronger. Victoria wanted a war? Fine. Maya Chun was ready to fight. But on her terms, in her way, and she was determined to win. The confrontation. The coffee shop Victoria had chosen for their meeting was in a sketchy neighborhood south of Portland. The kind of place where people minded their own business and security cameras were suspiciously absent. Maya understood the choice. Victoria wanted to avoid anywhere she might be recognized, anywhere that might have records of this meeting. Too bad for Victoria that Dante Rossi didn't play by those rules. Maya sat at a corner table, a untouched latte growing cold in front of her. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a sweater, minimal makeup. She wanted Victoria to see her as she was now, unadorned, unimpressed, and utterly unafraid. Dante sat 3 tables away, facing the door, reading a newspaper like a man without a care in the world. But Maya knew he was tracking every movement, every person who entered. 2 more of his security team were positioned outside, and a third was in a van down the street, recording everything through a directional microphone that could pick up conversations from 100 yards away. Victoria walked in 15 minutes late, probably trying to make Maya sweat. She looked terrible. Her signature auburn hair was dull, pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and she'd lost weight in a way that made her look haggard rather than thin. The designer clothes she wore seemed to hang on her frame like costumes rather than actual attire. Good, Maya thought viciously, then immediately felt ashamed of the thought. This was what pain and consequences looked like. This was what happened when your carefully constructed lies fell apart. "Maya!" Victoria slid into the seat across from her, not meeting her eyes.
Victoria.
You're late.